Okay, what's going on, everybody? My name is Mangg. Welcome back to Mangg Plays the Best Games of All Time. I haven't recorded one of these in a little while, so I think the last one we did was Half-Life, because we are in the year 1998. And I skipped over a couple more games for different reasons. Some pretty big titles, though. One was The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. A very big, important game, often listed by many places as the best game of all time. So I skipped it because I've done a Let's Play of it in the past. I don't really need to play any more of it. It's not a game that I'm entirely fond of or nostalgic for. I mean, we had it when I was a kid, and I played it when I was a kid, and I beat it multiple times when I was a kid, but I'm kind of just done with it. I mean, if I went the rest of my life without ever playing Ocarina of Time again, I'd be okay with that. That being said, it's obviously a very important title. It's the first 3D Zelda, and really pretty much like the first big like 3D action adventure game that really kind of set the whole stage for that. Now, we did already look at Super Mario 64, but that's obviously it's a platformer. And we looked at Tomb Raider, which was a 3D action adventure game, but Tomb Raider does not hold up nearly as well as Ocarina of Time does. So I don't really have any qualms with saying that it's one of the best games of all time, even though I don't really care for it that much. But it's still a beloved game that definitely does hold up if you're the type of person that likes 3D Zelda games. I just don't really like almost any 3D Zelda, so that's just kind of my thing. But yeah, despite its age, despite being the first 3D Zelda, it still holds up along with all the others. The other one I skipped was Metal Gear Solid. And this one I've never covered, and in fact, I've never even played. The only reason that I've skipped it is because I'm planning on some point in the future of doing an entire series playthrough for Metal Gear. I actually want to play like the original Metal Gear, I think 1 and 2 maybe. I'm not exactly sure of the whole lineup. Yeah, there's Metal Gear and Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake. Those were both originally on the MSX2. And Metal Gear 2 came out in 1990. So that's quite a delay there. Because Metal Gear Solid then would come out in 1998. Let me just look at the Metal... So yeah, Metal Gear. Then you had Snake's Revenge, which was the NES sequel. But I think we can probably skip that. Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake, Metal Gear Solid 2, Metal Gear Solid 3. There's also Metal Gear Solid The Twin Snakes. I mean, there's a bunch of spin-offs, but really, I just mainly want to do Metal Gear 1 and 2, and then Solid 1, 2, 3, and 4. I've already done the Phantom Pain, but all the rest of them, the only other one I've played is Snake Eater, which was really good. But anyways, yeah, so I've never played Metal Gear Solid, even though it's, you know, it's up there as one of the most important and greatest games of all time. I can't say for sure if that's true, if it still holds up and it's still incredible or anything like that, compared to, say, Phantom Pain or anything. And I don't know. I assume there's like some remasters of it or something like that that we would probably play. But, either way. So I can't say currently if it's one of the best games of all time. Much like Ocarina of Time, it probably is. But I can't say for sure now. So, yeah, eventually we'll be doing a full playthrough of that and we can talk a lot more about it. But for now, we're going to skip it. That brings us to this game. This curious looking game. This is Panzer Dragoon Saga. Released for the Sega Saturn in 1998. So this is often regarded as the best game that was ever released on the Saturn. And kind of among fans of the game, it's regarded as sort of a competitor to Final Fantasy VII. And some people say it's better than Final Fantasy VII. That's kind of laughable to me. I mean, let's simmer down a notch. Let's simmer down a notch there. I would say... Well, here's the issue, is that I'm not playing this in 1998 on my brand new Sega Saturn or something like that. I'm playing this in 2022. And it's hard for me to be completely, like, objective, trying to put myself in the hot seat of a gamer in 1998. But that's the point, is if it's supposed to be one of the best games of all time, it doesn't matter when you play it. I could be playing it in 21-22, and it should still be amazing. But anyways, so yeah, Panzer Dragoon is a series of, like, rail shooters. So you're on an essentially a rail. You're constantly moving forward automatically, and you shoot things because of you're a dragon. You're riding a dragon or whatever, something like that. So, yeah, there was a few Panzer Dragoon games, and then they decided, let's change it up completely and make Panzer Dragoon Saga, which is basically just a turn-based RPG with random encounters and all this sort of stuff. It's a very interesting decision. It's hard to say if it really paid off for them because, unfortunately, they released it on the Sega Saturn. Had it been released on the PlayStation, who knows? Honestly, I don't even know how well it would have done on the PlayStation. Because the PlayStation was filled with just, like, these random one-off kind of turn-based RPGs. I mean, if you... like, PlayStation 1 RPGs, you've got, like, Grandia, Xenogears, Suikoden 2, Legend of Dragoon, Chrono Cross, Breath of Fire 3... Lunar Silver Star Story Complete, Wild Arms, Vagrant Story, the Final Fantasies, the Dragon Quest, Star Ocean, Legend of Legaia, Vandal Hearts, Jade Cocoon. I mean, Tales of Destiny. The PlayStation was just filled with random RPGs. And we owned a bunch of them, so I'm familiar with a lot of these. And it's like, they were all fine. I mean, that's why we were a big PlayStation family, really, is because We loved turn-based RPGs, and so there was just so many of them. So yeah, we had Wild Arms, we had Legend of Legaia, we had Chrono Cross, we had Grandia, and like no one ever fucking talks about Wild Arms anymore. And even when I was younger, it was like, I don't think I ever beat Wild Arms. I don't know if I ever got even that far. Because it just was like, you know, it's tough. It's tough, you know. It's hard to really say what differentiates an okay RPG and an excellent RPG. But I digress. So anyways, Panzer Dragoon Saga. Basically, the plot of the game is that you play as a character named Edge. You're a mercenary, and you're on this team guarding this. You're guarding this excavation site where they're excavating relics from this ancient civilization, and you find like this girl inside of a wall. And then this like evil fleet of airships comes in, and they kill everyone except for Edge, and they grab the girl, and Edge survives the attack, and he manages to escape because he finds some dragon that just shows up. And then suddenly you're just bonded with this dragon, and he does all the fighting for you, pretty much. So the combat of the game, which we'll get to, the combat of the game is sort of hybrid turn-based and real-time. It's sort of an ATB system where you have to wait for your bar to fill up before you can do different actions. And the more your bar fills up before you do something, the more you're capable of doing. So you can do some like really special mega attacks if you wait a long time. And the enemies, of course, have basically similar sort of systems where real time, if you just sit there and you don't push any buttons, eventually they'll just kill you. They don't wait for you. The sort of interesting thing is the directional based systems. So all the combat is aerial based because you're riding this dragon. So every fight takes place in midair, and you're allowed to freely rotate the dragon around the groups of enemies. So you can appear in front of them, behind them, you can move to their left and right, and different enemies have different strengths and weaknesses depending on where you are. They'll do different attacks depending on if you're in front of them or to the side or stuff like that. And they will also sort of force you to move occasionally to put you in a worse position. So not only are you dealing with like your attacks and building up and waiting for the right moment to strike, you also have to sort of wrangle with the positioning so that you're basically, oftentimes you can hit them in a weak spot, but you have to put yourself in a bad position to do it. So a lot of fights involve like you waiting in like a good position defensively until you can unleash a big attack, and then you move into a bad defensive position in order to hit their weak spots. Stuff like that. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the most interesting thing about the game. And it's really unique. I mean, it is good. I won't argue with that. And if we go into the sort of dragon customization, I named my dragon Encaligon, because of course. You can change sort of your dragon's, I don't know what to call it, disposition, I suppose, by just moving this around on this screen. So if you set this thing right in the middle, he's got balanced completely across the board for attack, defense, spiritual abilities, and his agility. But you can crank it in one direction or another if you want to give him much more defensive stuff, much more attack power, much more agility so he dodges attacks, spirituals like your special abilities and stuff like that. So far I found it best to just leave it right in the middle, but if you depending on where you put this and what you focus on, you get a different passive trait whenever you're sitting on like full bars. So if you build up your full turn bar all the way and you still sit there, you'll get different effects. So I can't remember all of them. I think if you have agility and you have 3 bars, you're very likely to dodge. I think if you have attack cranked, you'll counterattack if you ever get hit. But I know for the normal benefit at 3 bars is that you auto heal. You have like a heal over time whenever you're at 3 bars, and that's really handy. The other thing you can customize is your character's gun, Edge's gun, because a lot of the abilities and attacks you can do in the game are based on the dragon, but Edge can shoot his gun as well, and generally it's not that bad if you have a single target. The dragon is really good most of the time for like big AoE stuff or multi-target, but the gun is really solid for just one target. So you can customize different attachments to your gun to change how it operates. So the tri-burst, instead of 1 target, it changes it to 3 targets, but lowers the overall power of it. And the mauler shoots more rounds and thus plus 20% power on your shots. Stuff like that. That's sort of it for customization. And that's sort of my issue with the game, is that there's no other characters. Like, you never have a party of characters or anything like that. This is your character. You have Edge, and you have the dragon. That's it. And that really kind of hurts the overall experience in for me, I'm saying. Just, this is just personal opinion. There's really little to customize here. There's really little, like... It does not scratch that, like, urge to grind or urge to progress in order to get more and more powerful and unlock all these different options for battle and things like that. And so... combat in, like, a Final Fantasy game or something like that becomes interesting when you have, like, all these different characters with all these different abilities, and you have to kind of juggle and decide what the best combination of abilities and attacks and stuff like that to do depending on the enemy. The interesting part of this, where you have the directional based combat and things like that, it's cool for like an hour, and then it's just like, all right, we get it. I mean, not much really changes as you go. And you might say, well, man, you're just not very far. You're only level 10. That could be true, except it's a 4-disc game. And I believe I'm like halfway through disc 2 or something like that. I'm trying to even remember. Okay, maybe I'm not halfway through disc 2, but I'm partway through disc 2. And like I said, you never get any more characters or anything like that. So it's a very just linear game of just progressing through this story. And the story itself is... Again, this I can't fully judge. I haven't played all the way through, so it's hard for me to say. But, I don't know. The dialogue, the writing is just nothing that special when it does appear. And it's just sort of a very odd game in a lot of ways. Let's just progress here just to get into a fight. Alright, so here we're fighting some random groups of enemies, so this is... Alright, so here I'm right in front of them, and they have a weak point right in front of them. I've shifted around to their back, and now they have this sort of defensive shield up. And they now pushed me to the front so they could hit me with Laser Storm. But I have my 3 bars filled, so I can hit them with all sorts of... I could hit them with a Berserk, which is... Generally, it costs like 2 bars. Some of them cost 1 bar. Some of them cost 3 bars. But generally, it's 2 bars. So I could do that. But just as effective, if not more so, is just using like your normal attack 3 times in a row. So we can do the homing laser. That'll target a few of them randomly and fire off a thing. And then you just... So when you go into the menu like this, it's obviously stopped. This is the turn-based portion of it. But you do have to sometimes be a little quick on the draw to actually stop before they blast you. So there, you got off another laser storm. Not too bad, though. And then we can shoot him with the gun. Dead. And that was that. And then you get judged based on how quickly you did it and how much damage you took. I obviously didn't do it too well. And we leveled up. There you go. And again, no choices or anything like that. No customization. And that's that. And that's basically the game. The bosses obviously are a little bit more involved and take quite a bit longer. It's often like just a test of endurance and how well you can stay in good positions and attack at the right moments. Okay, I didn't actually want to do that, but... There we go. And there you go, great fight. And that's it. That's Panzer Dragoon Saga, you know? So everything takes place pretty much on your dragon. The only time you get off is like if you go into a little town or settlement. And there you pretty much just run around as normal. But I don't know. It's fine. I mean, it's certainly fine. I think in 1998, if I had this instead of like Wild Arms and Legend of Legaia and stuff, yeah, it probably would have been pretty fucking awesome. But I don't think those games hold up either. And just look at this random encounter rate. It's absurd. Oh, that's not good. So yeah, I mean... I've been putting off this video because I was like, well, I probably should just play more of it, but I just kind of don't want to. So eventually I'm like, well, I'm holding up the list now. Just because I don't want to make a video on this. There we go. And the graphics, yeah. Graphics are not too great. I mean, honestly, like a modern remaster of this wouldn't be that terrible of a thing, though. Like, you get a modern remaster of this with, like, redone graphics, some quality of life stuff, and maybe a bit more, like, oomph and customization and stuff added to the combat. It probably wouldn't be that bad of a little game. But to say that it's a competitor or better to Final Fantasy VII, I mean, that's just kind of insane to me. And I say that as someone that didn't really play through Final Fantasy VII until, like, 10 years ago. Yeah, I don't know. It just feels like such a... like a lonely game. I don't know. Like, so much of the game is just you and your dragon just, like, flying around together. And you barely talk to people. You don't have any party members, like, chiming in on occasion or anything like that. It's really... It's a cool idea. And it's a cool concept for a game, but I don't know. I think they're just kind of limited by the technology here. Or I mean, I don't know. I don't know. It's not a game that upsets me or disturbs me or really bothers me in any way, but it's also not a game that I want to spend that much more time with. I guess I could show you the, oh, shit, that's not good. Shit. Yeah, so your berserk ability, your special abilities also cost BP. So it's not like you can just spam them even though you have bars. So I'd like to show you a cool one, but I don't have the BP. Alright, I'll use this just so I can show you a cool berserk ability. Even though I'm getting my ass handed. Alright, how about Holy Sphere? There you go. Yeah, so that's Panzer Dragoon Saga. I mean, if you've ever played this game, you grew up with this game or whatever, or you discovered it later, you know, and you really love it, tell me why. I'm definitely interested to see, like, what the big deal is and why people would say it's better than Final Fantasy VII. There's some cool ideas here, and the overall concept of you and your dragon flying around together and taking on the world. It's all pretty cool, but... And I don't know how they would do the combat system with other people, but there's plenty of RPGs where you primarily control one character, and then you're just aided by other characters. I mean, Final Fantasy 15 does that, you know? That's how that game functions. The recent Guardians of the Galaxy game does that. All sorts of games have that, where you're just aided by NPCs that are there for your journey and along for the journey, so you allow interactions with them, but you don't necessarily have to actively control them in battle. And so having no other characters along for the ride like this is just such a lonely experience. It's very unique. I can't really say if it's great or not, though. So my overall verdict is I'd probably say no. It's not one of the best games of all time. You know, if there's a compelling argument that someone wants to give as to why it should be, feel free. I mean, this has been on more than 6 lists. It was actually on 10 separate lists. So that's pretty solid. There's a list from 2003, 2012, 2003, 2005, 2007, a French list from 2011. It's on the 1001 video games you must play before you die. 1999 list, 2015, and 2018. Okay, so I mean it's a fairly good mixture. IGN is put it on their top 100 like 3 separate times. But, you know, still. Yeah, alright. Well, that's my verdict, and we did it, so now we can move on, but yeah, I mean, it's an interesting game. I can't refute that, at least. But alright, my name is Mangg. This has been Mangg Plays the Best Games of All Time with Panzer Dragoon Saga. I'll see you fine folks next time.